The desk of Burke Hedges. Your pipelines are your lifelines. It's been 25 years since my father passed away, but I can still remember our early evening chess games like they were yesterday. I remember helping my father set up the chessboard on the veranda of our beach house overlooking the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Ecuador. I remember watching the waves breaking against the white sand beach. I remember the fragrance of hibiscus floating on the saltwater mist. I remember watching the soft yellow sun sink below the still grey horizon. We had play chess until dark. My father would talk, I would listen. Never take anything for granted. I remember him saying many times as he gazed at the horizon. From prince to pauper in one day. Never take anything for granted. My father was referring to 1959, the year Castro took over Cuba. Prior to the revolution, my father was one of the richest men in Cuba. According to an article in Time magazine, my father was worth more than $20 million, which would calculate to at least $200 million in today's dollars. He owned 12 different businesses including cotton mills, retail stores, a textile mill, a chemical manufacturing plant, and commercial real estate. When Castro took over, my parents escaped to Jamaica with just the cloth on their backs. My father's business and bank account were confiscated for what the communists called crime against the people. My father's only crime was being successful and then taking that success for granted. In hindsight, he should have moved some of his assets out of the country. He took it for granted that Castro would never be able to overthrow the government. My father was wrong and it cost him his fortune. A premonition of pipelines. My father did his best to rebuild his dynasty, but a bad economy and a bad heart conspired to prevent his comeback. He was not bitter in his final days. He was just disappointed that he had run out of time. So, as we played chess, my father did his best to teach me the key principles that enabled him to amass a small fortune while he was still in his 40s. My father often lectured me on the importance of owning your own business. Ownership meant independence and control. As far as my father was concerned, the more businesses you had, the better. Your pipeline are your lifelines, he would say. I took my father's lessons to heart. I opened my first business when I was only 25 years old. Today I own several fast growing businesses. Ironically, one of my company, Equibor, has a pipeline business. Literally, Equibor installs the underground conduit that old economy utility companies use to house their gas and water pipelines. New economy telecom companies use the conduit for their fiber optical cables, the pipelines of the future. My rich dad, his rich dad. My father was a big believer in diversification. That's why most of his 12 different businesses were in different industries. If you have only got one pipeline, then you have only got one lifeline. He had said as he captured one of my chess pieces, the more pipelines you have caught, the better. A few months ago, I came across an audio tape by Robert Kiyosaki titled What My Rich Dad Taught Me About Investing. Kiyosaki tells a brief story about two young men who were hired to deliver water from a lake to their village a mile away. One of the young men used a bucket to carry the water. The other young man built a pipeline. Over the long run, the young man who built the pipeline fared far better than the bucket carrier. Kioski's idea reminded me of the lesson my father taught me 25 years ago. That evening, I went home and jotted down 10 pages of notes for a new book explaining the parallel between pipelines and lifelines and urging readers to diversify their income stream by building both short term and long term pipelines. I titled the book The Parable of the Pipeline. 3 months later, I handed my publishers the manuscript to the book you are holding in your hands. And now you are listening. Building your own pipeline. Over the years, I have taken my father's advice, built several profitable pipeline. I don't own 12 businesses like he did, and I am not worth the 20 million yet, but I'm working on it. Pipelines are designed to take the worry out of people's lives by putting profits into their pockets. But most of all, pipelines are designed to give people personal and financial freedom and lifelong security. In short, pipelines are lifelines. My father had his lifelines taken from him by a dictator, and he never recovered. People in this country are blessed. We will never have our lifeline taken from us by a dictator. Only we can take the lifelines from ourselves. How? By not taking the initiative to build them. Take a lesson from my father. Don't take it for granted that tomorrow will be just the same as today because it wouldn't. The only security is the security of a pipeline. I urge you to start building your pipelines today so that you will have your lifelines tomorrow. Introduction. The Parable of the Pipeline. 1801 Bali in central Italy. Once upon a time, long ago, two ambitious young cousins named Pablo and Bruno lived side by side in a small Italian village. The young men were best buddies and big dreamers. They would talk endlessly about how someday, some way, they would become the richest man in the village. They were both bright and hardworking. All they needed was an opportunity. One day, that opportunity arrived. The village decided to hire two men to carry water from a nearby river to a cistern in the town square. Job went to Pablo and Bruno. Each man grabbed two buckets and headed to the river. By the end of the day, they had filled the town cisterns to the brim. The village elder paid them 1 penny for each bucket of water. "This is our dream come true," shouted Bruno. "I can't believe our good fortune." But Pablo was not so sure. His back ached, and his hands were blistered from carrying the heavy buckets. He dreaded getting up and going to work the next morning. He vowed to think of a better way of getting the water from the river to the village. Pablo the pipeline man. "Bruno, I have a plan," Pablo said. The next morning, as they grabbed their buckets and headed for the river, instead of lugging buckets back and forth for pennies a day, let's build a pipeline from the river to the village. Bruno stopped dead in his tracks. "A pipeline? Who ever heard of such a thing?" Bruno shouted. "We have got a great job, Pablo. I can carry 100 buckets a day at a penny a bucket. That's $1 a day. I'm rich by the end of the week. I can buy a new pair of shoes by the end of the month, a cow by the end of the 6 month. I can build a new hut. We have the best job in town. We have weekends off and 2 weeks paid vacation every year. We are set for life. Get out of here with your pipeline." But Pablo was not easily discouraged. He patiently explained the pipeline plan to his best friend, Pablo. Pablo would work part of the day carrying buckets and then part of the day and weekends building his pipeline. He knew it would be hard work digging a ditch in the rocky soil because he was paid by the bucket. He knew his income would drop at first. He also knew it would take a year, possibly two, before his pipeline would start to pay big dividends. But Pablo believed in his dream and he went to work. Bruno and the rest of the villagers began mocking Pablo, calling him Pablo the pipeline man. Pablo the pipeline man. Bruno, who was earning almost twice as much money as Pablo, flaunted his new purchases. He bought a donkey outfitted with a new leather saddle, which he kept parked outside his new two-story hut. He bought flashy clothes and fancy meals at the inn. The villagers called him Mr. Bruno, and they cheered when he bought rounds at the tavern and laughed loudly at his jokes. Small actions equal big results. While Bruno lay in his hammock on evenings and weekends, Pablo kept digging his pipeline. The first few months, Pablo didn't have much to show for his efforts. The work was hard, even harder than Bruno's, because Pablo was working evenings and weekends too. But Pablo kept reminding himself that tomorrow's dreams are built on today's sacrifices. Day by day, he dug at inch at a time. Inch by inch, it's a cinch, he chanted to himself as he swung his pickaxe into the rocky soil. Inches turned into 1 foot, then 10 feet, then 20 and 100. Short term pain equals long term gain. He reminded himself as he stumbled into his humble hut exhausted from another day's work. He measured his success by setting and meeting his daily goals, knowing that over time the result would far exceed his efforts. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize, he repeated over and over as he drifted off to sleep, accompanied by the sounds of laughter from the village tavern. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize.